we'll start off with life after work, how to create a sustainable income stream once you retire. And so if there's ever been a plan to retire, or time to retire, or time to plan for retirement, now is the time. Because if you don't plan ahead, it can be a little bit scary when you retire and you're going, okay, do I have enough money to make it to age 80 or enough money to make it till age 90? And you certainly don't want to run out. So some of the main things that you'll be looking at is how much money you'll need during retirement. We'll look at where will that money come from, when to start Social Security, whether you should work or not. When I went around the room a little bit earlier tonight and asked, what learning objectives you had, a few people have said that they plan on working part-time or maybe scaling back on their work hours. And the question is, okay, well, can you still draw Social Security benefits, or what happens if you're self-employed? Can you still draw Social Security, and how does that affect your benefit? And then how to manage withdrawals for a sustainable lifestyle. So this is a MetLife study, and the MetLife study, they asked people what makes them feel most confident during retirement. The number one thing was a guaranteed income stream. So 68% of respondents said what makes them feel most confident and comfortable is a guaranteed income stream. That guaranteed income stream can come from Social Security, pension, maybe fixed annuities. So it's nice to have that base in your plan. Second thing was sufficient savings, building up the right amount in your nest egg. And then the third thing was to have liquidity of assets. And of course, liquidity of assets is it's nice to have that slush fund or rainy day fund, but the only problem with liquidity of assets these days is what? Low interest rates, right? So the more liquidity you have, the lower the interest rate that you're earning. So as an example, if you have $10,000 in the bank these days, you'll get enough interest to buy a cup of Caribou coffee once a year, right? It's pretty pathetic, the interest rates that we're getting on bank accounts these days. And unfortunately, Federal Reserve Chairman Greenspan, really dating myself here, Bernanke, he said interest rates are going to stay low for a while. And in Japan, interest rates have been low for 20 years, below 2%. So that could possibly happen here. So imagine your life as kind of the first phase of retirement. Where do you want to live? What do you want to do? You have to think about how long you're going to live and what surprises does life hold. Where you want to live? I think this time of year, days like today, people are saying, I can't wait to be a snowbird and go down to Texas or Arizona or Florida, be someplace warm. And then of course, being we're all Minnesotans, tomorrow you'll be saying, boy, it's pretty nice here, isn't it? It's supposed to be 39 degrees. So many examples of people that are changing residencies at retirement. A lot of times, folks these days will actually follow their kids around or want to be close to their grandkids so they can see their family grow, or maybe they want to move a little bit closer to their kids so their kids can take care of them in their old age. So a lot of thought has to go into how close to family you want to be. Affordability, we're seeing a lot of retirees these days that are saying, okay, well, we want to downsize to a different home. We want something that's maybe single level living, less maintenance for us, maybe something that's a little bit newer where you don't have to be replacing appliances and roof and redoing your kitchen and things like that. And a lot of times what we're finding is people set out to do that, to downsize, and then they end up having to come up with an extra $100,000 in order to downsize. Have you found that these days? In order to change residences, it actually ends up costing more. So a lot of thought has to go into that. Employment and business opportunities, what are your travel plans? And then there's other general preferences such as climate, culture, recreation. What are your goals? What's your lifestyle like? So these are some different things you'll want to discuss with your spouse and your family. Second thing is what will you do during retirement? And basically it's broken down into two different categories. There's income generating activities and there's expense generating activities. So the income generating would be if you're saying, okay, I want to work part-time or be self-employed. Expense generating activities are the things that you're probably doing on the weekends. You ever notice how when you're going to work during the week, it costs less than the weekends? So on the weekends, don't you spend more money? Yeah, so that's kind of the way it is when you retire. You have a lot more time to do your hobbies, to play golf, might be playing tennis, might be traveling. So a little bit of thought has to go into this and in working out your budget. Now, the other big thing is longevity risk. And this is a table that insurance companies use. And as you see here, for men that their current age is 65, their average life expectancy is 17 years. And then for women reaching age 65, their average life expectancy is 19.7 years. So on average, the insurance companies are saying, based on current mortality rates, you can expect to live till 85. Now, if you look at this recent Prudential study, what they're finding is that because of improving health care, year by year, the older people get, the better chance that they have to reach an older age. And so you see in a study here, for married couples age 65, there's a 50% chance that at least one spouse will live to age 94, and a 10% chance that one spouse will live to age 104. Is that amazing? So if you're a male age 65 years old, there's a 50% chance you'll live till age 88, 25% chance you'll reach age 96. Does anybody know somebody that's age 90 in here? Raise your hands. Yeah, it's not unheard of. It's fairly common these days to reach age 100, family members and friends. So this is longevity risk, outliving your assets. And you don't want that to happen. Nobody wants to become dependent on their children or become a ward of the state. So got to think ahead a little bit on these things. What surprises does life hold? And the surprises might be health. You're probably, a lot of people are reaching their 60s and the number of visits to the doctor's office start to increase the older you get. You start to notice friends and co-workers that might be of your age that are having health issues, whether it's cancer or stroke or diabetes or early death. Those things hit people when they get in their 60s and 70s. So you got to kind of plan ahead for these things. I recently had one of the workshop attendees who retired from Medtronic Corporation. She retired with a nice little nest egg of about $300,000, pension, Social Security benefits, and within a year of her retirement, her husband, Ted, became ill. He had a stroke, and she couldn't care for him at home, and so he had to enter a nursing home. Nursing home, $7,000 per month. $7,000 a month. Guess who pays for the nursing home? They do. And he really didn't have a nest egg, so she actually had to use up her 401k plan all the way down to $70,000. And now she's in her mid-60s, has $70,000 in her nest egg, and another 30 years to depend on that money. Not a good scenario, is it? So again, these health issues, everybody's thinking, okay, I'm the guy that's going to live until I'm 95 or 100 years old. I don't seem to be having health issues, but then they hit like that. And again, it's very important to think ahead and try to protect against these things happening to yourself. How about the family? Here's an interesting statistic for you. 1 in 10 retirees has a child or grandchild living with them. 7.8 million grandchildren live with their grandparents in America. So we had a gentleman that came to the class last month, and he was here because he adopted 2 of his grandchildren. And he's retired, he's over age 62, drawing his Social Security benefits. His question was, can I draw Social Security benefits because these are my dependent children under age 18? The answer is yes. So he's actually drawing Social Security benefits for his 2 grandchildren. So things to consider. You know, you're going to have boomerang children coming back to you. So if you plan ahead and you're moving, make sure it's just a 1-bedroom condo. Over 55 only community. All right? So another scenario that was kind of interesting, one couple that I worked with for many years, he retired from Hoffman Engineering, and they always talked about their favorite thing was going down to Florida. They wanted to spend time and travel to Hawaii at retirement. And it wasn't a year after they retired, her mother got to the age and they said, well, you can come stay with us. And she came to stay with them, and 10 years later, she's still staying with them. And they never went to Hawaii, Florida, never left for a single winter because there's really nobody else in the family that could care for mom. And she didn't want to travel, and that's just the way it was. I talked to him this year, and she passed in October at age 94. So she went from 84 to 94 living with them, depending on them. And but it was worth it for them. They said it was a good experience. And they actually had another grandson that wanted to move in with them. They said no. And it was interesting because they said they're going to Florida this year. You know, that's what they've always wanted to do. They're driving down to Fort Myers and going to get a little sand between their toes. So things to think about. The economy, you know, you never know what's going to hit. There's a lot of volatility in the market these days. We had a gentleman last fall that attended, and he said, you know, Sean, I was a millionaire a few years back, but now I'm starting over and rebuilding, and things like Social Security are all that much more important to me. And he went on to tell me a story that he worked for an energy company, and it was here in Minnesota, not based here in Minnesota, based out of Texas, called Enron. So he lost everything, and we've had more than one person has attended and has lost a lot of net worth in the real estate market or with their 401k. You know, it's not an unusual story for people to work a little bit longer these days. So, you know, we got to start thinking about what kind of surprises, major disasters, so on and so forth. These are some of the phases before you do stop getting that paycheck coming in. And then how much income will you need? And so this area here, you know, I think the smart way of doing it is to actually sit down and look at your finances. What are you spending? What did you spend in the prior year? You know, it's almost like when you first start out in life. Remember when you first started out, you probably did a budget because you didn't have anything. And then now, you know, you're getting close to retirement, and it's a lot more comfortable feeling if you actually know what you're spending. And then from there, you can figure out what your investments are going to bring in, how much Social Security, pension, and then what the possibilities are with your nest egg that's built up. So again, you know, sit down, try to do an income plan, and then from there, you can start to say, okay, well, what are our sources? We're going to have Social Security. We potentially could have a pension. We have our retirement investments. And then, of course, for a lot of people, they say, okay, yeah, we're willing to bridge the gap and earn a little bit after retirement. So we'll get into earning income after you draw Social Security, so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the limitations this evening and the taxation, how it might help your future Social Security benefits. So this first part is more, you know, kind of on the investment stuff. Social Security is later tonight. But pensions are something that these days people do have. The younger generations probably don't have a pension plans. Corporations are doing away from them because of the costs of administering a pension plan and the risk and longevity, et cetera. How many folks in here actually have a defined benefit pension plan from their employer? So yeah, that's great, well over half. And so that'll be a nice base in your plan. And with these pension plans, what we suggest in advance are things that you want to start investigating, just like your Social Security that you're going to be looking at tonight, is when you're seeing your pension numbers printed out and sent to you, or maybe you have to go online and calculate the benefit for age 62 or 65 or whenever you're planning on retiring, a lot of times they'll show you the single life benefit where if you draw, let's take an example, you're going to be able to draw $1,500 a month, and they'll let you draw that $1,500 a month the rest of your life, but when you're gone or when you die, then the pension's gone. And so for married couples in here, you might want to be looking at what they call a joint survivor pension option, where if you predecease your spouse, then your spouse is able to continue collecting that pension benefit. And so here you'll want to look at, they might have 100% joint survivor where your single life pension is $1,500 a month, but if you take the joint survivor, they'll reduce your pension down to $1,300 a month. But then if you predecease your spouse is able to continue getting that $1,300 a month the rest of his or her life. So the pensions, again, start exploring them now instead of waiting till the day you retire to do so. Some pension benefits might have a bridge where you can take more now, and then at between, let's say, 58 and 62, and then at age 62 they reduce it down because you're able to draw Social Security. There's lump sum pensions. Anybody have lump sum provisions in their pension plan? And we're actually getting probably a call every few weeks right now because a lot of the pension companies are sending out letters saying, hey, if you guys want to lump sum this money out here and not take a monthly benefit anymore, we'll give you the lump sum. You can roll it into your IRA. And the reason they're doing that is because they have to invest their money pretty conservatively, and interest rates have been so low for so long, pension companies are going, this is a lot of risk for us to be able to pay out these benefits into the future, especially with people living for so long. So the pensions, if you do have a lump sum available, what we're suggesting to people is to take a good look at it and don't rush off and say, okay, I'm going to lump it out just because all my coworkers did. Because what we're finding these days, some of these pensions, they have maybe a 5, maybe a 7% guarantee rate of return on your money. And that's not such a bad deal. Some pensions might have a 0% rate of return until you've been drawing the benefits for 20 years. And that's not such a good deal. And so it really depends. So we start to crunch the numbers early on and figure out actuarially what's going to be best for you and your plan. Other things to look at is work. Will you work part-time? What will you do? And it's, not uncommon whatsoever for people to be working well into their 60s or until they're 70 years old these days. I have many examples. One gentleman I just worked with, he's a client for many years, works over at Medtronic, and he's 70 years old, and he keeps passing up the early retirement lump sums. And I said, well, why do you do that? And he has plenty of money, but he said, I like what I'm doing. I want to see these projects come to the end, and I enjoy the people that I'm working with, and so there's nothing wrong with that. It's not a bad thing to keep working. I had another woman that came to our class, and she said, Sean, I need to leave at about 8:30. I'm going to be leaving early because I have to go to work. And I said, oh, really? I kind of felt sorry for her because she is up there in age. And I said, well, what do you do? And she said, I stock shelves at Walmart at night. And again, I kind of felt, oh, that's too bad. She must have had, not been able to save up for retirement. And that was my first thought. But then later on, I got to know her. And her whole career, she worked as a midnight jailer. So she had a great pension, and she had a nice chunk of money in deferred comp, and her husband had a nice pension, but he died, and she didn't like being home alone at night. So it was her thing. She wanted to get out and be with younger people and hang out, and so that was a good deal for her. So there's really nothing wrong with working. There's some good books out there, and one of them that's recommended by AARP. This is a new book that just came out in 2012. This title, believe me, it's a long title, so you won't be able to write it down fast enough. It'll just come up to me during the break. But this Carrie Hannon, she offers tips on and looks at the job opportunities that are ideal for retirees, how to compile a resume, how to get through an interview if you're out of practice. The book is called Great Jobs for Everyone 50 Plus, Finding Work That Keeps You Happy and Healthy and Pays the Bills. Sounds pretty exciting, doesn't it?